Hello everyone, my name is Ritesh Pandey and in this video, we'll begin organic chemistry for class 11 science. School exam, board exams, medical NEET exam or engineering JEE exams, all entrance exams. In chemistry, you will find maximum questions from organic chemistry. So naturally, it starts with maximum enthusiasm. It's going to be a long, exciting journey. In the sense, most of organic chemistry is taught class 11 onwards only. And it's equally rewarding, not only from exam point of view. In general, you develop an interest in organic chemistry, research wise, career wise, it's full of opportunities. This being the very first class, we'll begin with downright basics, and chances are you will find the approach similar to what is there in most of the textbooks, including NCERT. You might want to begin with a heading like Organic Chemistry Class 1 Basic Principles, and before we go into any of the discussions, it's always advised to begin with a little bit of introduction, history of organic chemistry. You would have heard or known the term organic. The term organic literally means related to life. So this is a relatively newer or younger branch of chemistry. In the sense, for a very long period of time, people believed that compounds which are directly or indirectly related to life or living processes, DNA, RNA, proteins, hormones, enzymes, hemoglobin carrying oxygen, chlorophyll carrying out photosynthesis. So way back, people believed that all of organic compounds are created by the Almighty, the God, and this is why I told you it's a relatively younger branch of science. So everything which is there in living organisms were supposed to be organic compounds, and those which were procured from nature, minerals, were supposed to be inorganic compounds. That was the broad classification back then. Around 1780, in the 18th century, Berzelius, a Swedish chemist, these are times when people believed that organic chemistry is beyond human control, and Berzelius, a Swedish chemist, he proposed or he gave a very popular idea which was called the vital force theory. Vital force theory. Now, as I told you, vital force theory believed that all of organic chemistry, all organic compounds are created by God the Almighty. It's not like our belief over God has lessened with time, but now we know that it's all within human reach. And the first blow to this vital force theory, which I repeat, vital force theory was about all organic compounds being synthesized and produced by the God Almighty nature. It was beyond human control, and it was given a blow by the scientist Wohler, F. Wohler, first of all in 1828. In 1828, you will want to know this name. A German scientist, I believe, Wohler, he prepared urea. Now, by heating ammonium cyanate, NH4CNO, by heating ammonium cyanate, Wohler prepared urea, CONH2 whole twice. Now, naturally, urea is there in the urine of human beings and other organisms. Urea is prepared in the human body, in the liver. So it's naturally an organic compound. It all began in 1828. You can claim urea is, say, the first man-made organic compound. Now, there were more cases in history. In the year 1845, another scientist named Kolbe, he could prepare acetic acid. He prepared acetic acid. Another scientist in 1856, I believe the name is Berthelot, he prepared another compound. He could prepare methane, the Mars gas, the simplest hydrocarbon. And now people started believing that organic chemistry is also within human control. The branch of chemistry which deals with organic compounds is going to be organic chemistry. And I believe with a little bit of history, we can start dealing with organic chemistry in details. Now, naturally, you are told, that organic compounds invariably contain carbon. There is a very popular adage. You'll want to copy down all of this. Some of this at times are asked in the real exams as well. Urea being the first man-made compounds, then these two incidents in history, and then there is a very popular adage. A very popular adage is all organic compounds contain carbon. All organic compounds contain carbon. All organic compounds contain carbon, but all carbon compounds are not organic. All carbon compounds are not organic. So you'll hear this statement time and again. Needs an explanation for a few marks in school exams and all. All organic compounds contain carbon, but all carbon compounds are not organic. Now let's begin with carbon being such an essential element and its relationship with organic chemistry. Now carbon is gifted. Carbon is a unique element. Carbon has the unique property of forming long chains, rings. The property is called catenation. Now carbon is absolutely gifted in the property of catenation, which is the property of forming long carbon chain, ring. Carbon is the best at it. You can have 100 carbon chain, 100 carbon ring, huge molecular compounds. The smallest hormones could weigh in thousands. So naturally, to prepare those huge compounds, long chains, long rings, naturally carbon with this unique property is invariably going to form the skeleton or backbone of all organic compounds. That is why carbon is there as the skeleton or backbone of all organic compounds. But all organic compounds are not organic. In the sense, when we talk about carbonates, when we talk about bicarbonates, so carbonates, bicarbonates, carbon dioxide, it might be a product of respiration, a reagent of photosynthesis, but only because we breathe out carbon dioxide does not make it organic. In the sense, carbonates, bicarbonates, carbon dioxides, which have very ample, which are abundant and free in inorganic world. Those which have abundance, free existence in inorganic world, different forms of carbon would burn to give you carbon dioxide. All the fuels, hydrocarbon fuels will give you carbon dioxide as a product. Carbonates, bicarbonates, they're naturally abundantly present in nature. Calcium carbonate, limestone, they're hills of calcium carbonate. So compounds which have free and independent abundance in inorganic world, in non-living world, they are not organic. So these compounds are not organic. Those which have abundant free existence in inorganic world, they are not organic, they are organic. And this is where we can explain that all organic compounds contain carbon because of its unique property of forming long carbon chains and rings. After carbon, the next element is sulfur. Now hardly 8 or 10 sulfur atoms, could form a ring or a chain. So after carbon, if sulfur or nitrogen has a little bit of catenation, that's very small compared to carbon. Carbon is uniquely gifted. It can give you long carbon chains, huge molecules, which is the necessity of forming organic compounds. Now with this relation of carbon and organic chemistry understood, we'll want to right away go to the bonding in carbon compounds. And you would have done a bit of it in class 11 chemical bonding. We're going to talk about tetravalency of carbon. And in tetravalency of carbon, we'll want to begin with the ground state configuration, which is 1s2, 2s2, 2p2, atomic number being 6. And to explain tetravalency, a very common approach is you put an asterisk here, you call this the excited form of carbon, and instead of 2s to 2p2, you unpair these electrons, you move one electron from s to p, and now you have 4 unpaired electrons in 4 orbitals. So this is how tetravalency of carbon is taken care of. A very familiar approach. You say this is carbon in the ground state. When it's forming compounds, you unpair this s electron. Now you have 4 electrons. Certainly P2 would have meant P2, P2 would have meant S2P2 would have meant only 2 electrons. To explain tetravalency, you unpair this, now you have 4 electrons, and then in different hydrocarbons, different forms of hybridization is taught and learned. In the sense, for the simplest one, which is an alkane, suppose if I talk about methane, the simplest hydrocarbon methane, you will want to merge all 4 of them and produce a set of 4 hybrid orbitals, which are popularly called sp3 hybrid. I am sure you are taught about all of this in bonding. sp3 hybrid, you know the term hybrid means not pure, it's neither S nor P. All the 4 have merged together to produce a set of equidistant, having equal energy, equal stability. It produces a tetrahedral geometry, which is again not incidental, I'll come to this, having 25% S character and 75% P character. So it's neither S nor P, it's hybrid. It's neither S nor P, it's hybrid. And I'm sure you would have thought about the term hybrid. It all begins from biology. That pea plant experiment, hybrid tall, you know, the Mendel's pea plant experiment. Genetics, it all came from biology. Hybrid is a term from biology. Hybrid means not pure. So it's neither S nor P, it's a set of 4 equivalent orbitals. And you wanted them to be equivalent. You wanted them to be equivalent because in a hydrocarbon, simplest hydrocarbon like methane, you would find all the 4 bonds are of the same type. They point towards the corners of a tetrahedron. They point towards the corners of a tetrahedron. It's all mathematical. It's all mathematical. You know, all the 4 would contain 1 electron each. All the 4 would contain 1 electron each. And naturally, these electrons being negatively charged will repel. It's a mathematical fact. It can be proved using basic geometry or trigonometry that if you have to keep 4 arms at maximum distribution, you know, you will want maximum distribution for minimum repulsion. This is the way where they can be kept at maximum distribution. Maximum distribution will mean minimum repulsion and maximum energy. Naturally, in methane, this was about carbon. The 4 hydrogen atoms would come and overlap from the 4 directions, and this is the structure of methane. This is the structure of methane which is taught in bonding, class 11, sp3 hybrid, 109 degrees 28 minutes. All bond lengths are equal. All bond lengths are equal. I told you it's absolutely mathematical that you want to keep these 4 pointing towards the corners of a tetrahedron. You join all the ends, you'll get a pyramid kind of thing with 4 faces. That's why the name tetrahedral. And all positions are equivalent. Bond 1, 2, 3, 4, between 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 1, 4 and 2, all bond angles will be equal. Tetrahedral geometry, all sigma bonds. And I want to write all bond lengths equal, all bond lengths, all bond angles equal. Now all bond lengths, all bond angles, all bond lengths, all bond angles equal, and this is why I had to merge S and P orbitals. If you don't merge S and P orbitals, naturally 2 different set of orbitals will give you 2 different type of bonds. Here all 4 bonds are of the same type. I am sure you would have learnt about all of this in bonding. All 4 are equivalent, all 4 are identical because none is S, none is P, they are all 4 sp3. 4 sigma bonds, sp3 hybrid, tetrahedral, and we'll want to move on. From alkane to compounds containing double bond, alkene. Now the simplest alkene, ethene CH2 double bond CH2, and now going back to this excited form of carbon, you know, this excited form of carbon which I had deliberately taken sp3. Now in this excited form, when this is 2s and 2p, when this is 2s and 2p, when this is 2s and 2p, instead of selecting all 4, I would select only 3. These 3 would be forming a set of sp2 hybrid. It's neither S nor P, it's a mixture of S and P character. You say 33.33%, 1/3 is S character, 1 out of 3 is S, and 2 out of 3 is P. So you can say 66.66 or 2/3 is p character. Again, all of this is conveyed in classes on chemical bonding. And sp2 with 2p taken, px, py, it would give you an xy planar structure, py, pz will give you a yz planar structure. Conventionally, the board I am working upon or the paper you would be writing upon, conventionally we prefer to take it like the xy plane. So if this is the xy plane, naturally z axis is normal to the board, z axis is perpendicular to the plane of board or paper you are writing upon. Conventionally, we prefer taking this as the xy plane, and these three would fall upon the xy plane. With sp2 hybrid, the structure you recall is trigonal planar. They're pointing towards the corners of an equilateral triangle 120 degree, and this is how it all happens. This time CH2 double bond CH2, you will want to orient these two carbon atoms, and the respective sp2 hybrid orbitals in a manner that there is a carbon-carbon overlap, and naturally hydrogen would come from here, hydrogen would come from here, and you will have a set of a carbon-carbon bond, 4 carbon hydrogen bonds. These are all sigma bonds, and while drawing all the sigma bonds sp2 hybrid orbitals, let's not forget about this unused p. This is the unused p. Now this unused p, which I would rather want to write here, this unused p, I took only sp2, this unused p is supposing the pz axis. If this is px py, I am making everything fall upon the xy plane, then naturally this is pz, and this pz along the z axis would be perpendicular. Now before talking about this pz and the corresponding lateral overlap, we might want to draw the sigma bond first. These overlaps, I'm writing the electrons, electron pairs, 2 orbitals having 1 electron, so I'm writing all the bonded pairs. There is going to be a carbon-carbon bond, naturally 4 carbon hydrogen bonds. These are all sigma bonds resulting from hybrid orbitals overlap. And the one which has not hybridized, it's in the xy plane 120. This is how a pi bond is explained. There is a partial overlap. These are all axial overlaps. These are all sigma bonds. Here I am talking about sigma bonds. Axial or direct overlap will result in strong sigma bonds. And this is partial overlap, which mind you is never because of hybrid orbitals. It results in pi bonds, which is going to be weaker. And if you understand the electron density, all properties of pi bonds and its effect in future would be very clear. If this is the xy plane, this is the 2 p orbitals along z axis. It will overlap above and below the plane of the molecule. So it does not affect the structure of the molecule. The structure and the shape and geometry is already decided by the sigma bonds. So it's all going to be 120 degree. It's all going to be planar, but with more overlap. This is the partial overlap. It's like 2p orbitals above and below the plane will have a partial or lateral overlap. You call it partial or lateral overlap. I'm not elaborating because all of this is done in chemical bonding, and what you do is you add one more bond. So every time you have a double bond, it's because of 1 sigma and 1 pi. It's because of 1 sigma or 1 pi, does not matter, you put it below or above the sigma bond. But a pi bond is always preceded by a sigma bond, is a general rule. Sigma bond will bring the nuclei close to each other, and the unused p orbitals by partial overlap having electron density both above and below the plane of the molecule, it's also going to have an effect such that the carbon-carbon rotation will be restricted. All of that will be understood by this clamping rule. Both above and below there is an overlap, but because both orbitals contain 1 electron only, we place 1 pi bond only. And every time you have a double bond, you realize it's because of 1 sigma and 1 pi bond. Moving on, we'll want to quickly take up the formation of triple bond with the most popular example, or the simplest example rather, ethyne. And this time, very deliberately, out of the 4 S and P orbitals, I'll take only one S and one P. I'll take only one S and one P. Out of these 4, I'll take only one S and one P. Naturally, this is supposed to give me a set of 2 sp hybrid orbitals. Very rightly, I can claim 1s 1p. So this will have 50% s character and 50% p character. And because I'll be using only one p orbital, suppose px, it will be along x-axis, if py along y-axis, and in any case these two would be forming linear structure. Now I have to explain for Hc triple bond CH. So right away I would talk about these two carbon atoms with this linear disposition. Naturally, you can have 2 hydrogen atoms come from left and right. I can show the common electrons, the set of sigma bonds, direct overlap sigma bonds. And after I talk about the sigma bonds, I would look into the unused p orbitals. Now the unused p orbitals, if I consider this as the z-axis, if I consider this as the x-axis, naturally it will be py and pz which are unused. It's py and pz which are unused, and the unused p orbitals, remember the unused p orbitals would be responsible for pi bond. So I'm drawing it with continuous lines because it's still in the plane. If this x-axis is y-axis, and maybe I'll draw the z-axis and the corresponding pz with discontinuous lines. You would have seen this in classes on chemical bonding before. Py overlap, pz overlap. There are 2 sets of lateral or partial overlap, and eventually I am going to write this as a triple bonded compound. Now in triple bond, if I write a triple bond, it doesn't matter whether you put the sigma or pi bond above or below, that has no consequence. But in a triple bond, let's understand, in a triple bond there is 1 sigma and 2 pi bonds. The structure is already decided. Pi bonds don't add to the structure of the molecule. The structure is already decided. Any bond angle is going to be 180 degree. It's linear when it's sp, but a little bit about sp, sp2 and sp3 has to be understood. And one fact which is very clearly visible, is every time you have pi bonds from p orbitals, the unused p orbitals is resulting in the pi bond. Here again, the pi bonds, the pi bonds are because of the unused p orbital. The hybridized orbitals, they never form pi bonds. So right away, we'll conclude, and this is such an important note to take. It's such an important note to take that hybrid orbitals do not form pi bonds. They do not form pi bonds. So to check hybridization, we'll count only sigma bonds. Only sigma bonds count will give me the number and nature of hybrid orbitals. So with this note in place, we'll want to move on. A little bit of cases which you had already seen in chemical bonding. We'll want to move to a general discussion on sigma and pi bonds. Now before I talk about a general discussion on sigma and pi bonds, some questions which we take up, I have taken the real NCERT questions, by the way. This is the real NCERT question, copy pasted from NCERT. Before I talk about this, I'll go back to the fact that only sigma bonds count will give me number of hybrid orbitals. Hybrid orbitals do not form pi bond. And certainly this is about direct axial overlap, pi is about lateral overlap. So this is going to be stronger, that is going to be weaker. Here the electron density is going to be both above and below the plane of the molecule. These would come handy in future discussions. And now we have to count sigma and pi bonds. See, the question reads, how many sigma and pi bonds? I told you it's a question directly from NCERT. How many sigma and pi bonds are present in the following molecules? Now suppose I take up, these are simple trivial questions. I guess most of you would be able to solve it without my help. What you can also do is you can pause the video right now. In a minute or so, quickly find the number of sigma and pi bonds. We'll also want to find hybridization here. You can do that in a couple of minutes. You can pause the video now, try these two, and then resume the video to check if you have done it right or wrong. I'll want to move on right away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like a 5 carbon chain. It's like a 5 carbon chain, and if I have to count number of sigma bonds, there are two types, carbon-carbon sigma bonds. So carbon-carbon I'll count 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there are 4 carbon-carbon sigma bonds. And if I find carbon-hydrogen sigma bonds, so carbon-hydrogen I'll find one with this carbon, another with this carbon, 1, 2, 3 and 3 out here. So 6 carbon-carbon sigma bonds, 6 carbon-hydrogen sigma bonds, and naturally 6 plus 4, the total number of pi sigma bonds would be 10 out here. 6 carbon-hydrogen sigma bonds and 4 carbon-carbon sigma bonds. Talking about the pi bonds, naturally pi bonds are only between carbon-carbon, and number of pi bonds is because of the carbon-carbon pi bond. Between carbon-carbon I see 2 pi bonds here. This being triple bonded, 1 sigma 2 pi, 1 pi bond here, so I'll get 3 pi bonds, 10 sigma bonds in this molecule. And if I had to find the respective hybridizations, I could do it with a lot of comfort. Now what I'll do is I'll want to write these molecules here. CH triple bond C, CH double bond CH-CH3 double bond CH-CH3, and I'll find the number of sigma bonds related to every carbon atom. So here I'll find 1 sigma bond to the left, 1 to the right, one with hydrogen, another with carbon. So I'll call it having 2 sigma bonds. This having left and right 2 sigma bonds. This having left, right, and one with hydrogen. So this is with hydrogen, one is with hydrogen, this carbon hydrogen I could have written above. So one with carbon, one with this carbon, one to the left, one to the right, one with hydrogen. I find 3 sigma bonds. Same for this carbon, one to the left with carbon, one to the right with carbon, another with hydrogen, so I find 3. And for this methyl, you would see 4 sigma bonds. One this carbon with this carbon, another 3 with these 3 hydrogen atoms. So depending upon the number of sigma bonds, I would predict this is sp, this is sp, this is sp2, this is sp2, and this is sp3 carbon. So with this understood, you might want to try B of your own. Again, pause the video, try B of your own. Out here, if you have copied it all right, we'll want to take up question B. In question B, CH2 double bond C double bond CH-CH3. In question B, CH2 double bond C double bond CH-CH3. Number of sigma bonds. I'll want to count carbon-carbon sigma bonds first. Now carbon-carbon sigma bonds, I'll write carbon-carbon 1, 2 and 3. 4 carbon chain, I find 1 carbon-carbon, 2 carbon-carbon, 3 carbon-carbon. So 3 carbon-carbon sigma bonds. Carbon-hydrogen, and with this carbon there are 2 hydrogen bonds, 2 carbon-hydrogen bonds, 2, 1, 3, 3, 6. So overall number of sigma bonds I believe is 9. I'll check again. 1, 2 and 3 carbon-carbon bonds. 2, 1, 3, 3, 6 carbon hydrogen bonds, 9 sigma bonds, and number of pi bonds is only between carbon-carbon. Number of pi bonds between carbon-carbon and number of pi bonds between carbon-carbon is invariably 1 here and 1 here. So 1 plus 1, 2, 1 plus 1, 2. 9 sigma bonds, 2 pi bonds, 9 sigma bonds, 2 pi bonds, and very quickly we can talk about hybridization of each carbon atom. So yet again, if I write it like CH2 double bond CH, it's double bond C double bond CH and CH3. With every carbon I'll want to go for the count of sigma bonds. So you can see 2 with hydrogen, 1 with this carbon, 2 with hydrogen, 1 with this carbon, it's 3 out here. For this carbon, 1 to the left, 1 to the right, 2 out here. 1 to the left, 1 to the right, 1 with hydrogen, 3 out here. And 4 for this carbon, 1 with carbon, 1, 3 with hydrogen, with 3 hydrogen atoms. With the number of sigma bonds, I'll sort it out. 3 means sp2, 2 means sp, 3 means sp2, and 4 means sp3. So be it finding the number of sigma pi bonds or finding hybridization, it will be a fun activity, will be the simplest question in the question paper. We'll want to move on. We'll want to move on to another question. Again, copy pasted from NCERT. What is the type of hybridization of each carbon atom? By now, you would have attained some command over this. Very quickly, I would want to find hybridization of each of them. So, starting with compound A. Now, CH3Cl. CH3Cl. This is going to be the complete form. This is going to be the complete form. You know, you see there are 3 carbon hydrogen bonds, 1 carbon chlorine bonds with 4 bonds, see with 4 sigma bonds, 1, 2, 3, 4, naturally it's sp3. With compound B, CH3 whole twice CO. Now this is how CH3 whole twice CO can be written in the complete form. This is called the complete form, where I show all the bonds in an extended manner. This is the complete form, CH3 whole twice C double bond O. With this carbon, I find number of sigma bonds 1, 2, 3 and 4. So with this 4, I can say this is sp3. This carbon at the center, I find 1, 2 and 3. 1 sigma 1 pi. In double bond 1 sigma 1 pi. 1, 2, 3. I will say this is sp2. And naturally with this carbon 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I will find 4 sigma bonds and this will be sp3 again. So this should be you know, pretty understandable. I'll talk about compound C now. CH3CN, compound C, CH3CN, and you know, I'm avoiding writing all the hydrogen here in the extended form. You can see 1 carbon bond, 3 carbon hydrogen bond, very clearly 4 and it's sp3. With respect to this, there is 1 carbon sigma bond, 1 carbon nitrogen sigma bond. Ye do sigma bond hai, the 2 are pi bonds, so 2 sigma bonds, it's sp. Because out of 3 bonds, 1 is sigma, 2 is pi, 1 is sigma, 2 is pi. Similarly, we can talk about D and E. I am sure by now you would have done all of it of your own. HCONH2. HCONH2 is going to look like this. We talk about carbon atom, and you could see out of 2 there is 1 sigma, 1 pi, 1 sigma, 1 sigma, 3 sigma, 1 pi, 3 sigma, it's sp2. This carbon similarly for E, which contains 1, 2, 3 and 4. It contains 4 carbon chain, and I'm sure most of you would have got it right. Out of triple bond, there's going to be 1 sigma and 2 pi. So for this carbon 4, this carbon 1, 2 and 3, the third one with hydrogen, 1, 2 and 3, and 1 to the left, 1 to the right, 2. You would naturally arrive at sp3, sp2, sp2 and sp sequence of hybridization. I guess most of you would have understood it by now. Most of you would have done it without my help, and we'll want to move on. Now, complete condensed and the bond line form. This is maybe the last topic we'll take in today's class. This is one question from NCERT, and it's simple. The complete form is what you do for the very first time. The complete form is what you do for the very first time. You know, you have to show the tetravalency of carbon, you have to show all the bonds. So this is methane, naturally this is ethane, you have to show all the bonds. So this is the most extended form, which is called the complete form. For 3 carbon, you know, you would want to write all carbon hydrogen bonds. So this is propane, this is propane. When you put it in a condensed form, so this is the complete form. A condensed form, which I am using a different ink. Condensed form, you would simply write CH4. So this is condensed. You would simply write CH2, C2H6, or you would write CH3, CH3. This is condensed, CH3, CH3. And you would simply want to write CH3, CH2, CH3, propane. So this is the condensed form. And when the structures are bigger, the complete form is this one. When the complete form is how it all began. You'll absolutely avoid writing this in future. This is absolutely unwanted. This is a 4 carbon chain butane. Instead of writing the complete form, the condensed form could be CH3, CH2, CH2, CH3, or an even smaller condensed form could be CH3, CH2 whole twice, CH3, CH2 whole twice, CH3, because there are two CH2 units here. So both of them the complete form and the condensed form, they represent the same molecule. This is easy to work with. And when the molecule gets even longer, and for all practical purposes, the most user friendly form would be the bond line form. You will want to read a little bit about bond line form from the textbooks. Bond line form is simply drawing the bonds using these zigzag lines. Now the zigzag lines, all the corners would represent carbon. All the corners will represent carbon. Here there are all sigma bonds. I would not write any carbon, I would not write any hydrogen. That has to be learned, that has to be understood. The CH3, CH2, CH2, CH3. So this is the most user friendly and the most practical way of writing formulae, structures, and sooner than later you need to be good at the bond line form. Sooner than later you need to be good at the bond line form. So with this understood, I would do it for a few more molecules. So if it's propanol, this would take ages. Propanol, this would take ages. CH3, CH2, then CH2OH. I don't know whether I'll do it for another molecule or not. Even this is a little time consuming. CH3, CH2, CH2OH. This is the condensed form which I have written in the black ink. And this is what we need to be good at right away. This would mean this is carbon 1, this is carbon 2, this is carbon 3. It has to be visualized. CH2OH, CH2, CH3. And trust me, we can do with all functional groups. If we can do it with alcohol, I can do it with all functional groups. So henceforth, instead of writing a propanoic acid like CH3, CH2, COOH, we'll rather want to prefer writing the bond line form. I would stick to the color notations, otherwise you might get a little confused. So instead of writing the 3 carbon long condensed form, even CH3, CH2, COOH, you will prefer writing CH3, CH2, COOH. All of this will be understandable. It could be a huge molecule, it could be an ester, it could be CH3, CH2, CH3, CH2, CH2, C double bond O, CH2, O, CH2, CH3. This is oxygen, so it's an ester. It's an oxygen, so it's an ester. And naturally, it's only about time. You write 1, 2, 3, 4. You write 1, 2, 3, 4 as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have written 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Double bond O and 2 more carbon atoms. This is ethyl butanoate. So there's no point doing this, and this is how we would take life forward in organic chemistry. You need to be good at the bond line form. Double bond, triple bond could all be explained very easily. And certainly for the aromatic compounds, it's going to be impossible. All of organic chemistry, we're never going to write carbon hydrogen here. That would be like such a wastage of time. So this is benzene. We never intend to write carbon hydrogen, that is understood. So everywhere the bond line form would be practical in aromatic compounds, long chain compounds. Expand each of the following condensed forms into their complete structural formulae. Bond line, maybe they are wanting the bond line form. A couple of examples I'll do right now and would leave the rest to your intellect. CH3, CH2, C double bond O, CH2, CH3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double bond O. Simple as it looks. B, CH3, CH, CH. Now CH2 whole thrice will mean it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbon chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbon chain. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbon chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Between carbon 2 and carbon 3, so it's carbon 2 and carbon 3. Between carbon 2 and carbon 3, I can easily place a double bond. This carbon 3, this carbon 4, 5, 6, this carbon 4, this carbon 4, 5, 6, this carbon 7. So with a lot of ease, we can write everything in the bond line form. I told you this is how we are going to take life forward in organic chemistry. With this, we come to the end of the first introductory class on organic chemistry. In the coming classes, we'll take up more relevant, a little more complicated cases. Read a lot, learn a lot, And the rule is, every time you sit down for organic chemistry, you'll want to have a pen and paper handy. You'll want to keep on drawing structures and learning parallelly. This much for the time being. Thank you so much.